Marino Sanuto, or Sanudo the elder of Torcello, was a Venetian statesman and geographer. He is best known for his lifelong attempts to revive the crusading spirit and movement. With this object he wrote his great work, the Secreta Fidelium Crucis, otherwise called Historia Hierosolymitana, Liber, expeditione Sanctae, and Opus Terrae Sanctae, the last being perhaps the proper title of the whole treatise, as completed in 3 parts or books. This work has much to say of trade and trade routes, as well as of political and other history, and through its accompanying maps and plans it occupies an important place in the development of cartography. It was begun in March 1306, and finished in January 1307, when it was offered to Pope Clement V as a manual for true crusaders who desired the reconquest of the Holy Land. To this original Liber, Secretorum Sanuto added largely 2 other books, were composed between December 1312 and September 1321, when the entire work was presented by the author to Pope John XXII, together with a map of the world, a map of Palestine, a chart of the Mediterranean, Black Sea and West European coasts, and plans of Jerusalem, Antioch and Acre. A copy was also offered to the King of France, to whom Sanuto desired to commit the military and political leadership of the new crusade. Life and travels. Marino himself tells us that he had spent the best part of his life in Romania, the lands of the Eastern Empire of the Morea. He had especially intimate knowledge. He had also visited Cyprus, Rhodes, parts of the Syrian, Cilician and Egyptian coasts, France, Flanders and North Germany, both west and east of Denmark. He had been in Acre, Alexandria, Constantinople, Avignon, Bruges and Sluis, as well as in Hamburg, Lübeck, Wismar, Rostock, Stralsund, Greifswald and Stettin. Among his friends and correspondents were Guglielmo Bernardi da Fervo, a Venetian nobleman who had travelled extensively in Muslim and Mongol lands; Bishop Jerome of Kaffa, in the Crimea, who in 1312 had been sent to reinforce the Catholic mission in China; and perhaps Peter, the English-born Bishop of Sevastopolis, a Sukhumkale in Western Caucasia, who makes an appeal for aid to the prelates of England in 1330. Marino Sanuto's ancestor, Marco, had founded the greatness of his family after the Fourth Crusade as Duke of the Archipelago and conqueror of Naxos, Paros, etc., and his descendant wrote with a personal interest in the odd question of crushing the Muslim world. Writings. The crusading plans of the Secreta double, first, Egypt and the Muslim world on the side towards Europe, Granada, etc., are to be ruined by the absolute stoppage of all Christian trade with the same. By such an interdict Sanuto hopes that Egypt, dependent on its European and other imports of metals, provisions, weapons, timber, pitch and slaves, would be fatally weakened, and the way thus prepared for the second part of the campaign, the armed attack of the crusading fleet and army on the Nile Delta, with the aid of the Mongol Tartars of Asia, natural allies of Western Christendom, and of the Nubian Christians. The conquest of the Delta and of all Egypt was to be followed by that of Palestine, invaded and held from Egypt. Sanuto deprecates any other route for the crusade, and unfolds his plan of campaign, his bases of supply, his sources for the supply of goods seamen, with great detail. Not only Mediterranean seaports, but the lakes of North Italy and Central Europe, and the Hanseatic ports, are enumerated as nurseries of crusading mariners and marine skill. Finally, after the conquest of Egypt, Marino designs the establishment of a Christian fleet in the Indian Ocean to dominate and subjugate its coasts and islands. He also gives a sketch of the trade routes crossing Persia and Egypt, as well as of the course of Indian trade from Corinth Coromandel and Gujarat to Hormuz and the Persian Gulf, and to Aden and the Nile. The maps and plans which illustrate the Secreta are probably the work of the great Portolan chart draftsman Pietro Visconti. Practically the whole of this map work corresponds with what Visconti has left under his own name. Much of it is indistinguishable. Among the plans that Avaca is of peculiar interest, being the most complete representation known of the great crusading fortress on the eve of its destruction, with the quarters of all its contingents of defenders indicated. The chart of the Mediterranean and Euxine and of the Atlantic coasts of Europe is composed of 5 map sheets, which together form a good example of the earliest scientific designer Portalano in the world. Mapper Portalano of the Mediterranean world is combined with work of pre-Portolan type in remoter regions. Here the shorelines of the countries well known to Italian mariners, from Flanders to Azov, are well laid down. The Caspian and the North German and Scandinavian coasts appear with an evident, though far slighter, relation to practical knowledge, and some idea is shown of the great continental rivers of the north, such as the Don, Volga, Vistula, Oxus and Sir Daria. Africa, away from the Mediterranean, is conventional, with its southeast projected, after the manner of Idrisi, so as to face Indian Asia, and with the western Nile traversing the continent to the Atlantic. Chinese and Indian Asia show little trace of the new knowledge which had been imparted by European pioneers from the Polo's time, and which appears strikingly in the Catalan Atlas of 1375. Sanuto's Palestine map is remarkable for its space-defining network of lines, which roughly answer to a kind of scheme of latitude and longitude, though properly speaking they are not scientific at all. Of the Secreta, 23 MSS exist, of which the chief are Florence, Biblioteca Ricardiana, No. 237, 162 fols, with maps and plans on fols, 141 v. -144 are London, British Museum ADDT, MSS 27376, 178 fols, with maps and amp.C on fols, 180 v. -190 are Paris, National Library, MSS, Lat. 4939, with maps and amp.C on fols, 9 are IIR 27, 98, 99. All these are of the 14th century.